Right. All right. Well, eighth grade parents, thank you so much for joining us for our kind of our transition to ninth grade parent meeting. I just want to thank you for the last 2 years. It's been amazing getting to know your students. We love them. And I know that it's been really weird that just last Tuesday we kind of switched gears. You know, your students were going to be transitioning. Actually, this was going to be their last week, and this weekend they'd be officially freshmen at North Coast Church. And then we just, last minute, was a church decision, and so we apologize for that. But part of it is we're bummed to see your eighth graders leave. So it was kind of a good way to kind of hold you back. One of the positives is during this time, we're going to get a better chance to say goodbye to your students. And also in the middle of that, Austin and his team are going to be joining us literally almost every Tuesday night. And so there's going to be a cool handoff, and I'm sure Austin's going to talk more about that in a minute. But so yeah, I just want to upfront apologize for that, but we are excited that we kind of get to extend this time with your students as we're going through that. So what I'm going to do is Austin, if you do not know Austin, he's our NineTen pastor. He has been working here now 2 years, almost 2 years. Is that right, Austin? I'm
three in October.
Okay, so over 2 years. So get there, but
time flies, time flies.
It does, but just so you know, just to brag about NineTen, especially once Austin got here and started getting, they really just, it's become an amazing ministry, and it's an amazing ministry for us to be handing off our eighth graders, and it's just been awesome to see what Austin is doing with NineTen. The kids that are just growing amazingly in their walk with God, and just the way they're all getting connected. It's become an incredible community, the Strong Christian Kids. It's just been so awesome to see, and a lot of that is the community and the culture that Austin has created in NineTen with his staff. And so I'm really excited for him. I'm excited for our eighth graders to be going up and hanging out, your students to be hanging out with him shortly. And so it's going to be a mixed thing, and I think he's going to talk through how we can do that, because we want them doing both during this season. But I'm going to go and hand it off to Austin, and I'm going to go ahead and right now make him the spotlight him right now. So Austin, here you go.
Yeah, I would so echo kind of what Trav was just saying of, I do apologize for a bit of the whiplashy nature of the last couple of weeks. And I know there was probably some communication there for you guys of, hey, my student's moving up to high school, and oh, just kidding, my student's not moving up to high school. But our kind of heart behind that was, in this season, we really did look at what's best for students. And that was the number one driver of that conversation, was what is best for our current eighth grade class, what's best for our current sixth grade class, what's best for our current sophomore class, and the classes in between. And we really believed that we can transition better if we transition slower. And so, yeah, it's not that we're not transitioning. And I know for a lot of the eighth graders that were maybe bummed to go, oh man, I thought I was moving up to high school. And I think it was probably a dual feeling, right? Of going like, oh man, I'm so stoked I get to stay in JH78, this ministry that I love being a part of. And I still get to hang out with Kate and with Trav and Taylor and Garrett. And I know there's a lot of that in Shara. There's that excitement there. But there's also, I think there was a little bit of that, miffness, and that was true for our sophomores as well, of going like, oh no, I'm so stoked to stay in 9-10, but I also, oh, okay, like I'm not going to 11-12. And as we pulled the chute on that, I think our heart behind it really is for students, that we can transition as best as we possibly can. And that really does look like us building bridges this summer. And so Trav has been so gracious in allowing us to hop onto some TNL Zoom calls. And I know my ladies of 9-10, like Charlene and Michaela, and a few of our gal interns and leaders have been able to hop on with Kate and do some of the interactions with your eighth grade daughters. And that's been really cool for us to get to know them and for them to get to know us and kind of get our faces in front of them. And then myself, a guy named Austin Fruits, Sean Breezy, who's my men's director, Hunter Jackson, who's my worship pastor, and then Tanner Ross, who does a lot of our creative and video. They've been able to hop onto some of the eighth grade calls and things like that. But our heart behind the transition was we really are hoping that in the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it's going to look like, that things will start opening up here at least a little bit. And even if we can gather in groups of 10 in homes, I really do feel like that's going to be a game changer when it comes to building relationships. And right now, when your 8th grade sons and daughters look at Travis or Kate or Garrett on a Zoom call, that little square that represents them is like, oh yeah, that's my pastor. And that's the person that I know and that I've seen in person, that I've gone to camp with, and that I did whitewater with. And there's a lot of relationship there. And so everybody that logs on to TNL understands, this isn't TNL. This is just TNL COVID edition. Whereas I think our heart behind slowing the transition was when somebody hops onto a 910 Zoom call, that really is 910 for them, and going, this is my first experience with 910, which, to be totally honest, is not a great first impression when it comes to 910. And I hope that they know me as their pastor as more than just the little square and going like, oh yeah, that little guy up there, that's my pastor. And, the chats that can go along on the side. And again, if we get to August and we're still in the exact same position that we're in, maybe we'll have to cross that bridge when we get there and go, how do we get creative with this? And how do we, film get to know you videos? Or I don't know what that's going to look like. And I think for a lot of us sitting around that circle, and there were 14 of us youth pastors with Chris Brown, it was like, man, I don't know when the right time to transition is. I just am confident that it's not now. And we really are hopeful that we can do it in August. But I think when it comes to that August date, we are, again, hopeful that things just look a little different then. And even if, man, on a Tuesday night, if there were 15 houses where people were all meeting together and I had to do a loop of all 15 of those houses just to get some actual FaceTime with people, I would do that in a heartbeat to go, man, I want to be in person with your students to start building those relational bridges, because that's just such an important part of ministry for us. It's not just consuming a YouTube video, or it's not just a Zoom call. It really is how do we spend 2 years building the bridges in what truth can travel over? And I love that we kind of stand on that ground at North Coast in TNL, in 910 and 1112. We do so much relational ministry with students. And so, yeah, I'm really excited for this summer. I know that might even sound kind of weird to go, how could you be excited for a summer of Zoom calls? But I think it's a unique opportunity to do ministry and to get to know an 8th grade class in a way that we have never gotten to know an 8th grade class before. And so often we spend the month of May kind of trying to do everything we can to get in front of 8th graders. And TNL does such a good job of transitioning. But this is going to be the first time we can ever hold on to our sophomores as our culture setters, train up our freshmen to invite an entire 8th grade class in, and interact with 8th graders all at the same time. And that presents a really unique opportunity for us. Whereas most of the time it's like we lose a class of culture setters. We now have a bunch of freshmen that are now supposed to be leaders of the ministry. And then we bring in 50% of our ministry is this new 8th grade class that doesn't know 910 and doesn't know who we are. And I think this is the first summer where we can kind of have our cake and eat it too, in a really unique way. And so it's not ideal. It's not perfect. I don't think any of us wake up in the morning going, yippee, another Zoom call, right? Like, that's probably not where we're at right now. And yet I think North Coast has done such a good job of kind of making the most of this opportunity and going, hey, church isn't canceled and God's kingdom isn't canceled. And how do we meet our people where they're at? And so, yeah, I wanted you to hear it from me. And I probably could have sent out a written email and I could have sent you a video. I think for me personally, I like the face-to-face interaction and kind of seeing and getting to know you guys a little bit more. And Trav, maybe even you and I can talk after this about doing another Zoom call some other time where we're not like soaked in graduations. But thank you guys for making the sacrifice of being here tonight. I really do appreciate it. It's fun getting to know you guys. And probably just to end here, Trav, I'd maybe open up the floor for some questions and just go, is there anything that's popped up so far, or that your son and daughters asked you that you didn't know the answer to, or something about 910 or me personally? Is there anything I can do to help you guys or resource you guys or answer any questions you might have? And you can either unmute yourself and ask that question or type it in the sidebar, whatever you're more comfortable with.
Hey, Austin, what day of the week do you guys all meet? And what times? Because we have in San, so we have to commute back and forth. But we're going to have our son stay with you guys because he loves it. But so we need to plan the days you guys do meet when we all go back to normal so we can figure that all out.
Cool. Yeah, such a good question. So our normal schedule, we have 4 weekend services, just like TNL or just like JH78 does. So Saturday night, Sunday morning at 9 and 11. Our leadership team meets after second service every other week. So it's usually the first and third Sunday of every month. And then we do have a Sunday night program, although our Sunday night program looks a little bit different. We can kind of talk about that more in the future. And then our midweek happens on Wednesday nights. So Wednesdays, we're on from 7 to 9. Most students show up around between 6:30 and 6:45 and kind of hang out on our 910 lawn beforehand. And then we open doors at about 6:55 and we start program at 7. And we do program from 7 to 8, which is worship and teaching. And then we're in life groups from 8 to 9 on Wednesday nights.
Thank you.
I saw 910 camp question in there. As of right now, we as North Coast Church are kind of just waiting on CDC guidelines, and we are very much so following North Coast's prompts there. And so, yeah, unfortunately right now it's not looking like we're going to be able to do camp this summer. We as all the youth pastors sat down and we kind of dreamed up a solution to camp. And we said, man, let's pool all our resources together. Let's do a big student ministries conference on the Vista campus. And I know JH78, you guys had an awesome post about that on your website. And I was super stoked on that, really excited to kind of work together with everybody on that. And probably the second heartbeat behind that was, even if we could gather and be all together and do camp, right? Summer camps typically cost like $300-ish. What was Whitewater last year? $400?
25, 430. So no.
I got COVID brain, man. Everything sounds more expensive, you know? Yeah, so our winter camp's $200, our summer camp's $400. And we just went, man, coming out of COVID, coming out of a recession, we don't want to ask students and families to pay $400 for camp. And so we wanted to come up with an alternative solution. We dreamed it up. We planned it out. We had a schedule. We had everything. And we had dates at the end of July. And then, you know, as time has clicked on, we just went, there's no way we're going to be able to pull that off in July, just with guidelines and social distancing and where we're at right now. And so, yeah, unfortunately, I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think at this point that we're going to be able to pull off a summer camp.
I mean, we are at least keeping our hopes up, but Austin's right. It's probably a 2% or 5% chance, but we are at least have thought through it. So if it does happen, Austin, we would probably, even though 8th grade is still with us, we'd probably still have 8th graders go to yours. Let's just say a miracle happened July 1. They're like, hey, we're closer to normal. We would probably have 8th grade go to 910 camp. Am I correct?
Agreed. Yeah. Camp is usually kind of that first thing that's a big culture change, and it's a big culture setter. And so, yeah, man, if we were able to have camp, which I agree, I think would be a miracle at this point, but would be a very welcomed miracle. I love camp. I come from a camp background, and it is one of my favorite things we do all year. And I worked for a camp called Hume Lake Christian Camps for years, and I now get to speak up there, which is a lot of fun. And I loved working for Hume, but the hardest thing for me at Hume was I always watched students go down the mountain going, hope you have a good youth pastor, and I hope you have a good church. And I think for us now, being able to pull off our own camp and then go home with our students, it's a game changer. And so I know JH78 does such an awesome job of pulling off camps, and it's one of my favorite things we do in 910 as well. So yeah, I'm with you, Trav. I really hope we do get to do it, but it's looking slim right now.
And those,
great question.
If it happened, it would be Sunday, July 26th, I think, to like August. I just had it up. Yeah, July 26th through August. I mean, to July 31st, I think is when it would be if it happened. Just so you know, but just a heads up. Go ahead, Angelique. Oh, you're muted.
I think you're muted.
All right. Hypothetically, if someone's child normally likes to do the bare minimum, which sermons should they be listening to?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think Trav, maybe you could answer the question of what's your heart behind life groups this summer?
I would say this. If your son is like, hey, I only want to listen to one sermon on the weekends, I would say listen to the 910 for sure. Our weekends do not correlate with our Tuesday night small groups. So they're not going to miss something. And then 2, this summer we're doing a series that I don't know if it's one we've done for sure or not with 8th graders. You know, we kind of have curriculum we go through. It's been a while since we've done it, but there's a chance they've heard some of it. So if they had to choose, I would say have them watch 910. We want them getting to know the 910 staff as much as possible. But yeah, we'd love for them to watch both. But yeah, bare minimum 910 for the weekends. Tuesday night, of course, it's going to be our Zoom small groups, and we're going to try to get in homes as soon as possible, just so you know. And actually, I didn't talk to Austin, but I'm assuming if we do that, like Austin said, he'll be quickly having some of his leaders even joining us if they can, because that would make it a quicker transition. So that's what I would say.
Absolutely. And this summer, we're walking through the Gospels, and so we just did a series this last year called it's called the OGs of the OT, and so it was kind of your Old Testament Bible stories. And we loved this series because it was like, man, for all of our church kids that grew up hearing these stories, I think once you hit high school, you start hearing the stories in a different way. Like I remember the first time I started hearing Old Testament stories and going, wait, no way. Like that's what happened, because I had the flannel board version of, you know, elementary school and Sunday school and things like that. And so being able to dive into some of the, you know, the more nitty gritty of the Old Testament text was fun for our church kids. And then for our non-church kids, being able to tell these stories for the first time to a lot of our students they're not very familiar with the Bible. And so, yeah, telling stories like Abraham and Moses and just the burning bush and, you know, the calling down of fire and Elijah and pulling out some of these stories, some of our students legitimately for the first time were like, no way. And so I think I'm really excited to dive into the Gospels, and we want to spend a summer really focusing in on the person of Jesus and telling his story. And so we do a lot of book studies in 910. We just wrapped up like a 8-week series in the book of Philippians, where we really did go verse by verse through the book of Philippians. This one's going to be a little bit different, where it's not necessarily topical, but we're also not going to go verse by verse through every gospel. We're really going to zoom in on different moments of Jesus's life and tell his story. And then we're doing if your student is maybe the opposite of that, of not the bare minimum, but they want more and they always want more, we're doing a daily blog as well that'll be linked into our 910 website. That's going to be walking every day. We've been doing what's called 910 in the morning, which is a live on Instagram. We're going to kind of take that same mindset, but we're going to do it in a written form. And we're going to release a blog post every morning at 9:10 a.m. So if you haven't checked it out already, fuel910.com, FUEL910.com is our website. And we are trying to do everything we can to keep that as updated as possible. I'm in the middle of transitioning a bunch of information right now. So if you click on things on there that seems a little bit outdated, check back in a week.
And then Rachel has a question, and then there's one that just talks about, Bob had a question about life groups. Once they get into your ministry, are they the same or not? But Rachel, why don't you ask your question, then I'll have Austin talk about small groups once they move into 9th grade.
Cool.
Well, this is kind of for you, Travis. You know, we have an incoming 7th grader. Our 8th grader is being held back. Is 7th grade transitioning right in? And then you're just keeping the 8th grader a little longer? Is that what's really happening?
Yes. When we were discussing students, first of all, just so you know, we decided for our students that, remember, like once they get into junior high, that's when they become more of a community. Like this is like, it's more than just elementary where you show up on the weekends. So lower than 5th grade, they're like, we don't care. We're transitioning the first week in June, no matter what. So 5th grade was going to move into 6th no matter what. And Tower 6 was like, hey, we'll keep both. But Tower 6 students were like excited to be a part of a midweek program. So we said, hey, we'll bring them up. It's going to look differently. Right now, I am running all 6th grade, and I have my directors that are running everything else. And I'm pretty much now the 7th grade or 6th grade pastor for the summer. So they're stuck with me. So yeah, so we are going to have 3 grades in junior high. I'm sure your son is a little bummed, like, wait, my sister has to be in my ministry, but he'll have to live with that for a couple months. So yes, that's kind of what's happening. Just so you know.
They're both 8th graders. That's kind of fun.
No, a 7th grader and a 9th grader.
That's fair. Okay, that's fair.
Yes. So, but yes, that is what's kind of happening. Austin, why don't you talk about, I'm sure people are wondering, hey, do they keep the same small group, same students together, or hey, are you going to be mixing it up? Like, what is that going to look like? And you can explain it better than me what it is.
Yeah, we try not to have a blanket rule there. It very much so is case by case and student by student, and we work really closely with Garrett and with Kate and with Travis and Taylor and Shara to make sure that we're making the best decisions for students. And so sometimes that does look like a student transitioning up and going, this group of students works really well together, and this leader's moving up, and this leader works really well with this group of students. We're going to take a 9-10 leader and partner them there, and we're going to keep that same life group. There have been other cases where it's like, you better not leave this group of students together. Like, it's a disaster. They don't get anything done together. And it's probably the number one thing I've learned in the last 3 years is you can't please everybody. And so everybody won't be happy when it comes to life groups. But I think, yeah, if I'm allowed to be a little bit brash, I think my question is always, is the goal of being in a life group your happiness and comfort? And I hope the answer to that is no. And so I know as they're students and as they're learning and growing, relationship has so much to do with enjoyment of life group, right? And so I'm not trying to put them in purposeful, uncomfortable situations, right? The last thing I'm trying to do is go like, oh, let's put this group of people together because they all hate each other. And the purpose of life group is not happiness, it's holiness. So be prepared to get holy, right? Like that is not our heartbeat at all. And that's not how we make life groups. But we try to do everything we can to work with the 8th grade staff to go, you guys know these students so much better than we do. And actually, that's a part of what I'm really looking forward to this summer is I've already got to have like an hour-long Zoom call with Kate and go, help me get to know this 8th grade girls class with Charlene, my associate pastor. And then we did the same thing with Garrett and the 8th grade guys and just going, help me understand these students. And then we got to go and surf with a couple of them and hang out. And we're really going to spend the summer strategizing, going, how do we place these students with the best leaders that we have available right now? We already have 47 life group leaders signed up for 9-10 for the next 2 years, and which I'm so excited for. We have such a good crew with my staff and interns and leaders. But we want to be really intentional going, let's make sure the right group of students are with the right leaders so that we can push them closer to Jesus and that they're walking healthy over a 9th grade year and a 10th grade year, learning what it looks like to be in a life group. So such a good question. And yeah, it's tricky and it's always a hard process. And I think we always look back, and Trav, you probably do the same thing. We always look back going, why did we put that student with that leader, right? Like when you know more, hindsight is always 20/20, and we really try to do everything we can to make the best decisions. But yeah, sometimes we make mistakes there, and we do everything we can to adjust and make sure that we're responding appropriately to that.
Are there any more questions you have for them? You can type. Go ahead.
Travis, this is Tim Balfour, anchor in Balfour. I just want to take the opportunity to thank you and your staff, specifically Mama Kate, as my daughter calls her, and her daughter Riley. They have just been a true blessing to our family, as been your whole staff. And Austin, we're looking to get to know your team and find all the blessings that we can get with them. It has been a great adventure for our family being with your team. So thank you all for what you do for our children.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much, too. Appreciate it. I'm looking at stuff over here, too, with private notes. So, but thanks. Sure. That Kate's awesome. Mama Kate's awesome.
The one and only. She came and cooked meals for our winter camp, and it was a dream come true.
Oh, we better get to do that again.
That was so fun.
Yeah, I'm stoked. I mean, for all the parents, I've had 2 of my kids go through NineTen. I've been in NineTen. It's one of the best ministries we have in our whole church. So I'm super excited to, well, luckily I have like a kid making factory at my house. So I get to keep going back as a parent. So it's a rad place for our students to grow. I'm really excited.
That's kind. Cool. Anything else? Brad. Well, again, thank you guys so much. Thanks for taking the time to be here. I know Zoom fatigue is a very real thing, and yeah, you guys have junior high students, so you've been at home with them all day for the most part. So thank you guys for hopping on this call, and I know it's a sacrifice, and I appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time to get to know me and let me stand in front of you guys and answer those questions and kind of give you my heart behind why we're transitioning the way we are.
Thanks, Austin. But we will for sure do more. We'll for sure do more. Another meeting in the next. I would say maybe the next 4 to 5, 6 weeks as we're starting to get more in the summer. I'm sure Austin would love to do that, and that way, as maybe as we're getting close to transition, more of those specific questions that are going to come with that, we'll be able to answer and talk through. But I do want to give you a heads up, parents, the minute that we are allowed to do in homes, we're already geared up. I think we already have 80 to 90% of our 8th grade small groups we already have a game plan ready. So the minute CDC guidelines and Chris Brown's down, we're pulling the trigger. So if it happened tomorrow, then we already have a game plan that we could start this Tuesday. So I just want to give you a heads up on that. Of course, things could change if CDC guidelines allows us, but parents are still uncomfortable. We'll have to see what that looks like, because if we're only getting like 20% coming, that could change things. But just want to get
right. But that's such a cool part of this season, right? Is like we're a click away from a hybrid system.
Yeah.
And that's such an awesome way that we can transition to go, heck yeah, let's open up and very much obeying CDC guidelines. And if there are whole groups of people that want to meet in person and be able to do those groups of 10 or 15, like, so be it. And if not, like, man, let's keep doing what we're doing and make sure that families are comfortable transitioning. And if you have a child in your house that's immunocompromised, or you don't feel comfortable as a family going out, like, let's keep doing program the way that we've been doing and make sure that we can cater to families like that. I think that's such an awesome thing that we can do to love the church well.
Yeah. So just giving you a heads up on that, parents, that we're excited. And if there's events that we're able to do, we've been talking that we would like to do the minute we're allowed to do like beach days. It might be we're at the beach all summer because that might be something we're allowed to do. So I don't know when that's starting, but the minute we know, we'll let you know. But hey, if it could be, we normally do our 3 or 4 Thursdays in July. Like literally, if we're allowed to do it in 2 weeks, it could be the whole summer. That's what we're doing on Thursdays. So be ready for that. That could be coming soon. We're trying to do whatever we can to still make it a fun summer, but still following the CDC guidelines. So yeah, for sure. So all right. Otherwise, I thank you so much for joining us, parents. I did record it. And so if you have people that miss, like, hey, what do they talk about? We want to get to know Austin, stuff like that. We will have it up. I'll talk to Taylor. I'm hoping we'll have it up by, hopefully by tomorrow, but for sure by the weekend, we'll have it up. We're going to have one that's the 6th grade transition and then the 8th grade one. So cool. All right. Thank you so much, parents. Appreciate it. That if you have any other questions, welcome to email us. You can leave a question in here, give us a call, whatever is great. So if you guys need to get a hold of me, my cell phone, I'll put it on there, 760-845-8053. I know it sounds like it's crazy that you guys are giving a number, but yeah, that's how much I love you guys. So no problem.
That's what Legendary does. That's what 20 years of ministry will do for you right there.
Oh, but yeah. Give me a call, text me. If I don't recognize your number, I'll refer to the voicemail. But otherwise, yes, don't be afraid to ask questions like that. So cool.
Awesome. Thanks, Trav.
No problem, Austin. Thank you so much.